Yeah, you know, I think in terms of the place that I stand today with the Cook family, you know, they had been out of the system for 90 years, you know, and so, you know, it took a lot of research, you know, and it took a lot of talking with elders and, you know, family to get to a place where we felt comfortable to express ourselves through the potlatch, eh? And so one of the things I was always aware of is that I came from a very large family, and so we wanted to make sure that we respected the eldest of the family down to the youngest, and that people who were to dance would be reflective of all those ancestors, eh? And I tell you, the beauty of this was just watching the children. You know, like when they would dance and get a name, like it's like a light shone brightly. Oh, it was beautiful. Like they felt like proud, the chest went up. And so there was something about being able to dance and having a name that allowed that to take place, right? And that was, it was worth every penny that you gave away. Yeah. Or every frustrating conversation you had. It's really about the children. Yeah, no, that's cool.
And talking about Nunu now, that was so
do our best. Yeah. But you know, I want to say that all the elders that I've ever talked to talk about Mu, talk about four. You know, our Namima, four chiefs, right? And there were four Namima. And if other Namima joined, they joined into a Namima. And so in some cases, like in the Mamanilikula, the Tumtumsults have the Cha'agewe, the loon, Tumples, and they have the Gilgamaxala. And so those three clans are in one clan, but it didn't interfere with the four. It was always important, eh? You know, and sometimes like 4 times around, you know, You know, things like that really made sense for, worlds. Like I really pay attention to that because they were right, and there's a story that I heard about the 4 islands after you die. And some people will go to the first one and come back, the second one like that, until the 4th one you don't. You're a helper, right? But they say if you come back after the first one, your eyes are green. It's come back right away that your work wasn't done. I thought that's real cool. Yeah. So things like that, eh? Yeah.
And I asked Hattie, why 4? And she said because there's the land world, the sky world, and the air world, and the spirit world.
Yeah.
And she said if you understand those 4 and you recognize them, you can see them in every one of our stories of how we came here.
Yeah.
So that's what ties our number 4 for her. That's what she was telling me. We do that with our transformation masks, a raven to a man, so you have the sky to the,
Yeah.
to the land, so it is very important because it ties our stories and it ties us.
Yeah. I talked with Bill Roberts, and he said that historical times that the Lichwachta, they had 4 symbols on their pole, just 4. He said that 6, 7 was new. He said that everything was based on 4. And he told me at the same time, he said that you had a series of potlatches, right? And he said, but what they did is that they used to give away canoes, and you had to have 4 of those giveaways in order to put 1 plaque on a pole. And when you got 4 on it, you've accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been a lot of canoes.
Yeah. And it isn't just in our BC world.
Yeah.
No matter where you go in the First Nations, across Canada, across the West,
It's 4,
all like a
moo.
rock culture and a
Moo.
Yeah. So no matter where you go, it's law.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I know that story oftentimes of children, like the first clan chiefs were the children, the 4 children, and they became the heads of the 4 lines, right? And there's something to that because it's like, that's what we're broken away from now, and bringing it back was saying, I'm trying to say, well, we know who our eagle chief is, we know who our head chief is, but who are the others? And let's fix that, right? And I think when we fix it, it'll take away all the nonsense today, because you're noble no matter what, right? And yeah, and one of the things I talk about is that, we got the eagle chiefs, the clan chief or nobility, and then the commoners. That slave business was new, but the commoners were people that were old, and they were also people that were young. And so it's like you stepped into the name to be in the nobles, right? And by that time, people are dying and you're filling seats and stuff. But we're not talking about common folk as being the way that Europeans talked about it. This is just, it's like when old Captain Jim, he was a big, powerful chief, right? The head chief of the Tlawitsis. And when he was finished, he just called himself Watsitsi. And, great-grandmother called herself Watsaga,
Yeah.
like your work's done.
Yeah.
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 Things that there's such humility attached to you being a leader. Is knowing, will say that is not to be seen in the modern hierarchical sense, that you wear your people on your face, and they're always what you think about when you're going to do it. And that's humility is a tough way to be, because it's about showing up and not wanting to be the best at everything. It's being how can I help? Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm hoping, let's say, that you know, that one of the gifts that people will walk away with is the deep understanding of Maya and what that respect means. Because if we can impart, you know, like after we potlatch, especially with hamsamala and things, you know, we tie it up and we blanket it, put it away in a sacred place, you know, and it's not taken lightly. I was down in Victoria and I went for lunch, and it was on a ceiling of a place that's a pub, right? You know, and you think about that, you kind of going like, oh, it kind of hit me in the wrong way. I went, oh no, hey, because it's so sacred, you know. And you know, my dad would tell me that in the attic of the Speck house, they had these boxes and they were all taken care of, you know, they were never to play with that. He said, except only the feast dish. He said there was one of our feast dishes was a killer whale. They used it as a sleigh. No. And it went down and it hit a rock and it split. And And so my grandfather got the boys together and he talked about that, mayakala, you know, and respect. And he said, I'll make another one. He's real gentle about it. But he never shamed them. And he just talked to them as a way of saying that, you know, like we want to make sure that when we model how we are, we're modeling good things. But they always treat it really carefully. And, you know, and I see examples of people who practice in a good way. They really understand it, you know. Yeah. You know, and so at the end of this, I hope that people can really take away that, yeah, we still hold our culture in a really special way and of high importance. And, you know, and that it's a good learning. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, and part of one of my teachings from William Duncan, he was apparently really good Humsums dancer, and he would go with Henry Speck, and there would be a bunch of them that were really good at it, so they were often hired. And one time, I guess the guy was from Mamanelikla, he was not Milkimlis, and they had a big long one, really long, and they said, we want to hire you, dance it. It's not a chance, because you could see that it was going to be out of balance. And sure enough, the fellow that agreed to, he jumped off a partition, platform, and it went head first, and it stuck in the ground. Eh? And so right away, the people surrounded it, and they just had a ceremony, and they took it and they put it there in a ceremony. He said they have to start over, and so what they did is they went and they stopped the whole thing and they started it over. That's how much respect they had for the ceremony, right? And it's not just us. I went down to a gathering in Souk, and 4 Swaikwai came out. And I was watching this mask, and it started to turn. So, you know, like it was almost ready to fall off. And so somebody encouraged them to go back in. And then all the 4 dancers came out, and they did a kliksela, teaching. And they just said, look, you know, they never singled anybody out. And he said, I just want to remind you how important it is to pray when you're putting everything on, is to center yourself, to know that when you're going to go out and do your dance, you're doing it for the right reasons, you know, that you're here in it. And it was really beautiful, you know, and left you with the sense that that's such respect, right, for the dancer, but for the culture and for how to prepare yourself. It's more than a dance.
Here, you know, to think about it as centuries and centuries of making it to be what it is. And for us to have to hide it for 67 years and be chastised before that for doing it as savages or heathens or something else that we knew we weren't, because that's just who we were, and we were expressing how we've always been taught. And now 67 years have gone by with them allowing us to express ourselves in our own culture. It's developing, but I hope and pray it can come back to what it was at the beginning. But I hesitate to say that too many assimilations have been introduced into it, and modern ways of thought that it is going to inhibit it for many generations to come, until they come to that point of peace with themselves and with our expression in culture.
You know, interesting, hey, because I know back to my grandfather's potlatch in 1934, they also talked about all the things they did to prepare ourselves mentally. You know, and it was like the keeper would say of the charcoal and the down and the ochre, all those things were about saying that we're not in the ordinary world anymore. It's eaka. It's not. It's not going to be that sense of real. It's magical now, eh? You know, so when you think differently, then everything is possible. And I think my thought is that we know enough now about the modern brain that we have the left and right hemisphere, and one's like a computer and the other's like a kaleidoscope, and we have the reptilian brain, you know, and so we know about this. But if we get stuck trying to do ceremony left brain, it's always just literal, right? We lose the symbolic relationship. And so when we get into that door that opens up and our ancestors are with us, then that's when the magic takes place, eh? And I've seen that as an example when we had the ceremony for Pops, you know, Alvin Alford, and so I really loved him, and I was helping him, and so I went out to get the Emos to help, and must have been 200-300 crows came, and they landed just outside, and they're all talking, and the very moment was say that the mask entered the house, they got quiet, and then they went in, they did the acknowledgements of the ancestors, and we came back. They all talked again and left. You know, to me, the ancestors were there for that. It was magical. You know, so I've seen so many of those when we've prepared ourselves the right way.
The right way.
The right way, you know, it's beautiful. Yeah, and that means that we've done the things we need to in order for us to show up the right way. But I've also been aware of people who've shown up and it's all about power and prestige.
Oh.
You know, and it's flat, eh? And that's where you start seeing the boasting and things like that. And you kind of go like, oh, I don't feel comfortable here. You know, because it isn't about a welcoming in for us to be of sharing spirit together. It's about someone being better and pushing you down, right? Yeah.
And the sad part, though, the people who call themselves chiefs or leaders don't know any better. Like, I've been to a meeting, and I always say this meeting before a potlatch, it was never everybody, it was just the Nemima. But here they are all talking and praising, even if they see it going wrong, they still get up and praise. And I know it's because of the lack of knowledge.
Agree. And, you know, and to feel comfortable to Klikstala in a good way. Yeah?
Knowledge.
I mean, there was a time when I first started going, there were some families who would throw their garbage in there. You know, and for those who are going to watch this video, and to know will say that that's so sacred.
knowledge,
that you know, it's the soul of our house.
knowledge,
You know, and it you know, it's powerful. You know, and so we keep it clean, and we. It's about warmth, and it's about illumination, right?
knowledge, 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 knowledge.
Yeah, you know, I was interviewing Ahwa one time, and she started singing a song, and she said it was my great-grandfather's song. But she said he would sing it and walk back and forth in the village, and it was a way of calling people out to join him. And by the time he had finished, everybody was walking back and forth singing the song. Then he invited them in to eat, and they had a talk about something that was important to the village. But what I really liked about that story was that, can you imagine, we'll say that when they were doing that teaching of Namatla, the oneness, you know, how you look at the world, he didn't want to do anything without the people. And you want to make sure, we'll say, that they came along. But it was his song, but it was shared by them, right? So they all sang it as if it was theirs. And then when they sat together, they talked business. But they also, the song was the guiding principle, or laid the foundation for the conversation, right? And He Tlanama, talking about the one that makes things better, right? You know, when you do it, when you start from that place, it makes sense. And so when you're going to talk about, you know, things that might be tough to talk about, you already set the tone, though. And you're saying, and without saying it, that we're one people, that we work together to make things right. You know, and then when we do that, they're going to have a good outcome. You know, and so it's like, it's some really powerful ways that, you know, that aren't that long ago. You know, and it's not difficult to say that we can't have them again in our villages.
Knowledge, 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 knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I really understand that, because if you're being paid as a witness,
Knowledge, knowledge,
you need to be telling the
knowledge,
truth then,
knowledge,
right?
knowledge, knowledge,
Yeah.
knowledge, knowledge.
Well, mine is everybody's wearing the butterfly now. Everybody wants to wear a butterfly. You know, even like the history of our family is that, you know, there's Sisantla, Nuu-chah-nulth, Tlingit, you know, and there's Gigalgum. Those are the four Namima, the Tlawitsis. Each one has their own crest. The Nuu-chah-nulth has two families in it, Keitala and Numas. And, you know, and so they work together. And they generally the ones that hold the butterfly. And so I ask the older branch why they're ashamed of their own crest. And they always want to use the butterfly. Because the head clan, which is the Sisantla, has its own crest, right? You know, but they won't wear their own crest. And I go, that's puzzling me. You know, so part of it is that it's because people don't know anymore.
Don't know anymore.
And, you know, they're beautiful crests that we have, because that's our origin.
Yeah.
Our ancestor came down, took this costume off, sent it lovingly back, and then we put our crest in our house, and we know we got a relationship with our ancestors. You know, and part of that is that, you know, then you could imagine lifelong walking in and out of here. Yeah. You know, you would know, say, from the time that you conceive of the world and begin to give some shape to it, that's your crest. To the time that you died.
Yeah, the time that you died.
Never ever questioning where you come from. And that's why we tell the stories and we tell people our crest.
Yeah.
And when we don't do that, you know, it's got to be confusing for the people who belong to that Namima.
Yeah, and why others just use anyone, and it's because it's lack of knowledge of who they are. Like my mother's father was the head of the Raven clan in Kingcome. So So I use Raven.
Yeah.
Then my dad was from the Wolf clan, Kwakwaka'wakw. So I use that too, and I explain. These are my parents' crest, you know, but people are making regalia and wearing them that they shouldn't use it. Like, I truly believe we need to educate the ma'amatas who are making our headbands and all that, you know, and just thinking they can make anything like a hamatsa special headband and then just sell it to somebody, and then this person's using it around. Yet it's meant for a hamatsa, you know. And I said to somebody last night, I said, our Kwakwaka'wakw people, at least I was taught, we have to color our headbands red. It means red. But I know the West Coast people keep theirs plain, but I can remember one elder saying, it's supposed to be red, because it symbolizes the blood of life to our blood of life. Yeah. So again, that's gone out of our teaching, you know. Our kids don't wear the anymore. It's all different colors, you know.
And I'm finding that a lot of people are wearing the rings, and you know, in everything that they do. And there's a certain color arrangement that is supposed to be depicting the different societies that they're initiated in, and how it's braided and how it's put on, how big it is, how long it is, you know, the different things on it. And I find that different today.
Yeah. Yeah. And my mom said the hamatsa rings always have to have again, four.
Four tassels.
Four tassels on it. And so my mom said, you know, and our people are making them with two, not enough to.
Well, I remember, Adi, how important when she was Echenta and she went through her ceremony, and her mother fed her 4 balls of food on a shell. Her mother had chewed the food and made balls out of it for her to eat so that she would never become overweight. That she would be conscious of her health,
Her health all the time.
and be and I said 4. She said, of course 4. What else could it be? But you know, those type of things that mention the 4. You know.
Yeah, so this last period, like the 67, it's really like a discovery time for us. And it's a time for us to design and to give life to a revival. What was, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, cool. That's encouraging. It feels hopeful.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think we got about a minute left. What's one last word do we want to say to these people?
But that's okay, because that, through us listening, we're able to teach them how to listen too. And I think listening is so important, because when it touches your heart or your soul, you know you've got the right thing.
Yeah, my last word would be we have an opportunity to learn together, to heal together, and to love together.